everybody. So we're going to kick off with thinking about this concept of writing as a method of discovery and writing as producing knowledge.
Mm.
And so, Julie, these are very big concepts that I've never really thought about when it comes to writing, never really thought about it in terms of the production of knowledge. So can we just get deeper into that? What do we mean by producing knowledge?
Well, that is a humongous question you're asking. And yes, what do we mean by that? I think that's a great place to start. So what's your understanding of knowledge? I mean, we use this word all the time, right?
Information.
Okay.
Yeah. At a simple level, the act of bringing information together in a coherent way for an audience, for a reader.
Do you see any difference between something called data, something called information, and something called knowledge?
Yes, but I can't articulate it. But yeah, I would say that they're different.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a great visual that I use with my own students. Essentially we have data that is just like these random little circles. Okay. They're not colored in any way. And in information, you have those same circles, but they're colored in with different colors. But the colors are like limited, like three colors: green, purple, blue, let's say. And knowledge then has those same circles with those colors and have connections between them. There may be random connections, but anyway, they're connected by lines. What does that image tell you about the difference between data, information, and knowledge?
For me, I can see knowledge as the connections are intentional. There are certain rules behind how it's connected and how somebody has made sense of that. Whereas information is a bit more discrete in that sense, but there's still a process behind information. Not to say that it's not synthesized and connected, but information seems a bit more categorical or just separate, whereas data is just it's just there. It's just static. It's just a piece of information, I guess. But
okay, so that's interesting. The categorical part tells me you think it's categorical because there are colors that kind of correspond. So maybe somebody has put those green random circles as within a particular kind of category. And then you have a purple one. Then you have a green one, a blue one, or whatever I said. So they're not exactly the same, are they? We might have some random bits of, let's say, information out there, and let's call that data. They may be categorized in certain ways, and let's call that information. And those things are then connected in a certain way. But the point is, all of us connect those things in different ways. So how is it that we are connecting those things? How do we do that?
Through rules, through an understanding of how it needs to be connected in a particular place or context, I guess.
So tell me more about those rules.
So let's say in academic writing, in a research paper, you have certain sections that have certain rules for how knowledge is produced. And so the literature aspect, I've always thought of it as, you just compile the literature. But I guess if you're producing knowledge, then how you stitch those pieces of literature together in order to make an argument and make a point about the gap in the field and for how in a research report, your research will fill that gap. That's knowledge. It's very different to just give me all the citations and let's dump it in, right? Is that the kind of rules?
So you talked about a literature review, and a literature review has certain kinds of rules, certain kinds of things you need to do in a literature review. You've written papers and thesis yourself, and you've written about language as a resource. How do you know which bits of literature to bring together? How do you make those decisions?
I would say you bring those decisions, you make those decisions around the information that you have, the concepts, but you have guiding principles like a research question and a problem and the significance of that problem. So all of that plays a huge part in how you make sense of other people's work and why that's relevant to you to bring it in. It's not just this person said this, I'm going to bring it in. It's how is that knowledge that is worthy of being focused on in my paper?
So in your introduction, you'll have something like your research question and your problem, something that you're investigating and probably something that you want to argue. Okay, so that would then determine what pieces of information or knowledge that you're going to bring together, right, in order to produce that knowledge. So I think at the end of the day, I mean, we can talk about knowledge in a very philosophical way and all of that, but just for the purposes of what we're talking about in terms of academic writing and how writing produces knowledge, we can see that it's produced by the kinds of contexts, the genres that we have to write within. But then how does writing do that is our next question, isn't it? What do you think?
Somebody wise once told me, aka Julie Choi, that writing is thinking, right? And so the process of writing, of putting information into sentences and then of connecting them with other parts of information to make that knowledge to meet the genre or the purpose of the report. The act of writing constrains you in order to think about what is your argument here? What are you trying to say? And how are you going to communicate that message? And I think for me, writing, when you backspace, when you delete, when you keep writing, it's actually through that process that you think, this is what I wanted to say, or this is what I meant when I first initially wrote that. You never get it right the first time, I don't think. There's always just writing, rewriting. Sometimes it feels like it's not going anywhere. And I hate that about writing. I think it can feel like, this is a first draft. Let me open another first draft. But as you said, no writing is wasted.
So something that you said just now, it gave me this picture of the backspace, deleting, writing, rewriting. And I think you said the two sentences that, come together. So in a sense, right, and then we talk about this in the book too, but writing has this linearity. We have to write one sentence. And the reason why we're backspacing is because maybe we think that word is not right or that sentence needs a different kind of construction and we have to rewrite it and then it flows into the next sentence and the next sentence. So it's got this linear format. And that linear format is supposed to take us somewhere. It can't just be like that forever. Even when you're writing a diary. You write with some sort of, I think, aim in mind. Like this is going to end somewhere. And hopefully it's either going to enlighten me or it's just going to be something really therapeutic. And by the time I get there, I will know. Okay, it'll be anything. But the point being that when we're writing, right, because we have to keep pushing our thoughts forward. And the thing that's going to help us to do that is, you say a literature review has certain rules. Okay, so I'll keep pushing the ideas forward. I'll keep connecting these ideas. I'll keep pushing it forward until I get to a place where I'm pretty happy that I've made the argument. Writing is producing the knowledge. That's the method, isn't it? And writing at the same time is a method of discovery because I didn't know by putting those ideas together that I would get to this place at the end. So does that make sense in terms of writing as a method of discovery? How will I know what I'm thinking or what I want to say until I get there? Until I write. That becomes really problematic in a time where AI, for instance, is doing a lot of the work of that producing. It's that process that becomes so important for us to know something, right? We have to know something, and we're doing it through our writing, but then AI is doing all the writing for us. So what do you think about that?
I think something is lost when we lose the ability to wrestle with the text. Like we've written a paper together, and there've been countless moments of temptation of just, can I just copy this and paste this into ChatGPT, get the reviewer's comment, just paste that into, and just trust that the AI will express that meaning. And when I've tried that, it doesn't do it in the way that I want it to be done, because it doesn't understand the nuance of the context that I'm writing in. And sure, it might have an understanding of writing a polished piece of research, but in terms of the meaning making of the argument of what I want to say, getting to the essence and the heart of what I want to focus on, it can get lost if I don't write, if I don't take care of that process myself, and if I just trust something else to do it and it doesn't do it, I feel like I'm losing out on something. I'm losing out on my creativity, on that muscle, on that consciousness of being intentional in what I want to say.
I really love that you use the word muscle, because I almost, even from my own brain, I think about brain cells like connecting together. And I'm thinking, if I don't do that hard work myself, the brain cells are not coming together and it's not creating that new pathway for me. So when I will copy paste something from ChatGPT or whatever, it doesn't matter, and I stick it into something I'm doing, the next day somebody asked me about that thing, and because the brain cells haven't like stuck together, I can't remember what that thing was. How is that helping me in terms of being able to express myself? And how can I actually say those are my thoughts, right? I think that's the issue with AI doing all that work. And you use the word many times now, you're losing something from that process of thinking and struggling. And yeah, who wants to do that in this day and age when we're very overwhelmed with a bunch of things? But at the same time, we're losing that ability to think. And that's why writing is thinking. And that's why we're losing that ability to think. And I think maybe also in the past, some other people have talked about this as, when we used to do handwriting. So the hand and the brain are kind of connected, right? To not do any more handwriting, we're losing something too. Okay, so people have talked about those things like that. But now the process is, you're not doing any. When we're typing, we're still thinking, I think. It's a different kind of thing, probably. We're just not thinking at all. So how can this not be on the agenda of every teacher's mind? Doesn't matter if you're teacher, educator, teach primary, secondary. We're all helping our students to think. And writing is that method of discovery. And if you're going to get onto higher education, we're talking about the production of knowledge, which has to not only be generated by yourself. Some idea that we are all just in isolation, we all work just by ourselves with a lone ranger, we just go away and write everything by ourselves. It's not correct. We've always used Google for research. We've used the translation tools. We have auto-correcting things, like we look up dictionaries. We've always had help from a whole range of things. If you're a research student, you're with your supervisors, and your supervisors give you ideas. And those ideas also get enmeshed in your ideas. And the writing then produces sentences and ideas that become co-produced. So we've always been working with lots of different tools. But the game changer of AI, I think, is if you take away all that process and you're just giving a prompt and telling it to produce text for you, then where's the thinking in that? Where's the co-production in that? Is that a co-production between you and AI? I don't think so. One other point I'd just like to make is, for those who, like, let's say academics who have a lot of language and literacy knowledge, for anybody else too who have a lot of language and literacy knowledge, you're going to probably benefit from what AI can do for you, because you know all the tricks of the trade. You can look behind the scene, and you can ask certain kinds of prompts that's going to get you even deeper ideas and materials that you need. But if you're still learning language and literacy, and you're still learning to analyze something, you don't know the tricks of the trade yet. You don't know how an argument really works. So whatever AI gives you, what you're thinking is, oh, yes, okay, that's all great then. But actually, if you knew how arguments actually work, you will be able to read further into what AI is giving you and question it, interrogate it, ask it to revise it. So the more you know, the better it's going to be for those who have that knowledge. And that's not where our younger learners are. They still have to learn how to do those things to get to maximize the advantages of AI, right? So this is, I think this is the tension with, say, primary or secondary and even university undergrads, where you're still learning to do that, and grad students too. So that's where I feel the most tension as a teacher. I'm not against it. I think it can be an enormous resource, but it can be, again, it'll be great for those who have a lot of knowledge already, and not as good for those who are still trying to learn and grasp. How does this genre work? How does this literacy practice work? Like, I think that they still need a lot of time to learn those things.
And I think understanding writing and how to write is part of that.